Welcome back, everyone, to another explainer, where we take incredibly complex source materials and break them down into a clear visual journey. And while we are diving into something absolutely mind-bending today, we're looking at the detailed apocalyptic prophecies laid out in the Bhavishya Malika. According to this ancient body of Sanatan Dharma scripture, our world is essentially on the brink of a cataclysm of almost unimaginable proportions. We're talking about a complete geographical reorganization of the Earth, triggered by cosmic forces from space, resulting in a tsunami unlike anything humanity has ever even conceived of. It's a terrifying scale of destruction for sure, but as we're going to see, it also carries a really profound promise of deliverance.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. 10,000. Just take a second to let that number sink in. According to the Bhavishya Malika texts, this represents the staggering height and feet of the catastrophic tsunami prophesied to strike the Earth. To put that into perspective for a second, commercial airplanes cruise at around 30,000 feet. So a 10,000-foot wall of water is essentially an ocean wave that reaches directly up into the clouds. The texts describe this exact event as a Kunda Pralaya, which translates to a partial dissolution of the world, driven by this sudden, devastating rise in global sea levels.
But wait, before we look at how this all supposedly happens, we absolutely need to establish the source of this information. We are drawing directly from the work of Pundit Dr. Sri Kashanath Mishra, Bhavishya Malika scholar and spiritual guide under the Biswa Sanatan Dharma Seva Trust. He is a highly revered scholar of the Jagannath Sanskriti and the Jajpur Mukhya Pandit lineage over in Odisha, India. Through his incredibly rigorous research and translations, these ancient teachings have actually been preserved and shared internationally. So the insights we're unpacking today are drawn straight from the authentic scriptural texts he's dedicated his life to explaining.
Now, it's really crucial to understand we aren't just analyzing generic folklore or some modern internet theory here. The Bhavishya Malika refers to a very specific, historic set of authentic, prophetic scriptures composed centuries ago by the Panchasakhas, the five great Mahapurushas or seers of Odisha. These deeply revered texts intricately detail the end of our current age, known as Kali Yuga, and the chaotic transition into the next era, Satya Yuga. Our explainer today is simply and impartially mapping out exactly what these scriptures describe.
Section 1. The Cosmic Cause. So what actually triggers this? What exact mechanism causes the oceans to rise so drastically? Well, the Bhavishya Malika describes a highly specific, terrifying sequence of events that actually originates from our sun. A fragmented star or a massive asteroid-like piece, often referred to in the texts as Lanka Nakshatra, breaks away from the sun and hurtles straight toward Earth. The Malika states that the Lord will break this celestial body into three distinct pieces right before impact. The first fragment strikes the Indian Ocean. The second fragment hits the Pacific Ocean, and the third plunges into the Arabian Sea. It's this simultaneous, massive displacement of water from these three oceanic impacts that instantly pushes the global sea level up by thousands of feet.
Section 2. The scope of the inundation.
With the ocean suddenly displaced by cosmic impacts, all that colossal volume of water has to go somewhere, right? And there's a really stark contrast in how different regions will be affected. According to Bhavishya Malika, the combination of these impacts and the melting of polar ice will cause a devastating rise in the Atlantic. Powerful nations in the West, specifically naming the United States, the UK, and Canada, will face up to 75% submersion. Their coastlines will just entirely vanish. Contrast that with the Asian continent. While the landmass of India is largely protected from total submersion due to its spiritual significance in the text, it will still experience a massive 600-kilometer inland flood. To give you an idea of that scale, the sea will violently push inward, wiping out everything from Delhi all the way to Amritsar.
And get this, the rising water is only one part of the equation. What's really fascinating is the description of the Earth's physical reaction to all of this. The texts describe extreme geographical shifts. Mountains will literally collapse and transform into flowing rivers. Ancient riverbeds that have been bone dry for centuries will suddenly refill with raging water. But most shockingly, the Bhavishya Malika describes a fundamental shift in the Earth's axis. The planet will tilt so severely that the north and south poles will literally swap positions, which means the sun will appear to rise in the west. The physical landscape of our planet will be entirely unrecognizable.
Section 3. The Remnant. 640 million survivors.
Now, hearing all these descriptions, you might be thinking this is an extinction-level event. Actually, scratch that. It's not a story of total annihilation. It's a story of transition. The crucial point here is this stark statistic, 64 million, or 64 crore in the Indian numbering system.
Out of a current global population of roughly 8 billion people, the scriptures explicitly state that exactly 64 crore people will survive this Kanda Pralaya. That means 92% of the global population will perish in these events. It's an incredibly devastating loss, and the text never softens that reality. But it is a remnant, not a zero. The human species continues.
And for those who do remain, they continue with a very, very specific spiritual focus. Amidst all the vast destruction, the Bhavishya Malika points to a single beacon of hope, and that is Sambhal. This location is prophesied as the birthplace of Lord Kalki, the ultimate avatar of this age. For the 640 million survivors, Sambhal serves as the spiritual epicenter, the focal point for establishing Dharma and ushering in the new golden age, known as the Satya Yuga.
Section 4. Miraculous protection of the devotees.
So, this brings us to the most pressing question. If a 10,000-foot wave is crashing over the continents and the Earth is tilting on its axis, how exactly did those 64 crore people survive? Well, the texts don't talk about underground bunkers or massive arcs. They describe a direct, miraculous mechanism of divine deliverance. Listen to this incredibly powerful translation directly from the scripture. The Lord will command Yoga Maya, where my devotees are, let mountains arise, let the wind be stilled, the ocean will divide into two parts and move on. According to the Malika, when the disaster strikes, divine feminine powers, the Ashta Chandi and Ashta Durga, will actively intervene. The tsunami waters will literally split to avoid drowning the faithful. The earth will rise up organically beneath them, creating impromptu mountains to keep them completely safe from the surging floods. It's a highly selective, miraculous protection designed specifically for the devoted.
But, and this is absolutely crucial, this protection isn't just given out at random. To receive this divine deliverance, the Bhavishya Malika outlines strict, specific spiritual mandates for those who wish to be part of the surviving remnant. The scriptures state that a person must perform Trisandhya, a specific prayer done 3 times daily. They must continuously chant the divine name Madhava. They're required to read 1 chapter of the Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran every single day. Furthermore, they have to adopt a strictly vegetarian diet, entirely giving up meat, eggs, and alcohol. And finally, they must embody the virtues of truth, love, kindness, forgiveness, and peace. According to the texts, these practices act as a literal energetic and spiritual shield against the coming cataclysm.
We've covered a staggering amount of scriptural prophecy today, visualizing a massive transformation of our world, from a cosmic strike all the way to a deeply spiritual deliverance. The Bhavishya Malika presents this not as a mere possibility, but as an absolute certainty marking the end of Kali Yuga. It forces a pretty massive perspective shift from the material to the spiritual, so it leaves us with this final provocative thought. As the ultimate test of Dharma approaches, how are you preparing for the transition to Satya Yuga? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep learning.